Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. It is once again one of my favorite times of the month. That is whenever I embark upon Kino Lorber Mania. It is where I gather up all of the latest and upcoming Kino releases that are on my plate and showcase them to you fine people. But this month is a little bit different because I also have like a little sub episode where I'm also going to do Shout Studios Mania, where I'm catching up on a couple of Shout Studios titles before we get into the hardcore Kino of it all. I have a few titles I wanted to show off that I'm really excited about. I think you'll really like. Some really great titles this month, and the first one I'm going to talk about from Shout Studios is their 4K Ultra HD release of Born on the 4th of July, starring one Tom Cruise whenever he was on his ascendance. And yeah, he had broken out with like Risky Business and Top Gun and everything, but this is whenever people started really taking him more seriously as an actor, and he actually got a Academy Award nomination for this one. He plays a young man, going from young man with kind of an idealistic outlook upon like serving your country and everything, to going to fight in Vietnam and experiencing hell over there and getting injured himself, bringing all kinds of baggage back from that experience to home, him going really through it at home with his family and his loved ones and everything, and really not being able to leave the war behind, dealing with his new circumstances physically, and then just how that all kind of spirals out, and then maybe to eventually some activism. And so this is really an anti-war film. It's Oliver Stone. So he's a director with a very strong viewpoint, I'll say. So just this marriage of material of just Stone kind of more in his prime with a young Tom Cruise who's fully committed, giving a fantastic performance with a great ensemble too. You gotta love Keira Sedgwick. Willem Dafoe's one of my favorites, so it's always great to see him pop up and stuff. And it's a good mixture of like early on you have some of like the war-torn scenes, but it's really the trauma at home that is really the driving force of the film, and just how this character study of this real life person who wrote a book and which inspired this movie, his experiences, and just really capturing that on film in a really interesting and fulfilling way. This is a 2.5 hour movie, but it never really feels its length. It really moves along with these great performances, great filmmaking from Oliver Stone, and with the cinematography and his main cinematographer that he usually gets for all of his projects, and everything is just kind of working together everything is just kind of working together in like a kind of alchemy that just really worked for me. And it's this is one that I saw for the first time a few years back on like a cable channel, so I was glad to see it again in really great quality. And this is a fantastic release. Luckily, Shout has been handling a lot of Oliver Stone's movies lately. Skip Platoon's 4K release because that's really kind of a travesty, but stuff with like Natural Born Killers and JFK have been great, and Born on the 4th of July is another good one. I hope they go back and remaster Platoon. That'd be great. But as far as Born on the 4th of July is concerned, we had that from a new 4K restoration of the original camera negative, approved by Oliver Stone. Looks fantastic in Dolby Vision. Everything just like bold colors, really nice detail levels. Everything just looks really nice. It's really nicely textured and everything filmic. This has not been DNR'd or anything like that. It's just a very natural presentation, which we really appreciate. You do get a new Dolby Atmos track along with the 5.1 track and the original 2.0 track. So no matter if you want something more forward-thinking, like technologically groundbreaking in terms of like a fully immersive Atmos track, or if you want to be more artistically pure to the original sound, you have your options and everything sounds great. You do get 2 commentary tracks. One is new with a film historian, one is an archival with Oliver Stone. You get 3 new interviews, including one with Oliver Stone. and then like one of the like special effects people and an associate producer. You do get some trailers and a music video. So overall, this is a really fantastic release for this film. It's a great dramatic classic, nominated for Best Picture. So if you are a fan of this film and haven't watched it in a while and you want to get the best version, get this. If you've never seen it before, it's Tom Cruise as like one of his finest dramatic performances. So make sure to get Born on the 4th of July. If it interests you even in the slightest, it's a very great release from Shout. My next film did not rack up quite as many Academy Awards as that one, but it was deserving all the same, and that is Rush from Ron Howard. This is a really cool real-life story of some Formula One racers. One, Niki Lauda, played by Daniel Bruhl, and Chris Hemsworth is his real-life counterpart. Who they kind of had like friendly rivalry back in the day, and kind of just like Chris Hemsworth plays like the cocky, like brash, like ladies' man, and Daniel Bruhl's Niki Lauda. He's kind of like more of a meek, technically brilliant mind who they're always kind of butting heads and seeing how whose style kind of perseveres, and they kind of push each other, sometimes in very harmful ways, and just how all this kind of their story, their trajectory over this 2-hour drama, how it all kind of unfolds. There's tragedies, there's like metaphorical spin outs, literal spin outs, just really interesting character dynamics, and you get to really know these characters on a really engaging way. And it's just if you like racing movies, which I do, I would never really take time to actually watch a race, but a racing movie I will watch anytime. It's not quite to the level for me as like a Ford versus Ferrari, but it is a really good movie. And even though it is directed by Ron Howard, it's not overly schmaltzy. It is an R-rated movie. You got plenty of cursing and nudity and all that stuff, all within kind of a mainstream friendly, but still kind of gritty enough R-rated racing drama. Great performances from Chris Hemsworth and Daniel Bruhl, and the supporting ensemble. They do a really nice job as well. Great racing footage, like that was captured. The way it was captured is really engaging, and really makes you feel like you're in the thick of the action, and just you feel every kind of like setback and triumph and all that good stuff. Just a really solid racing film. I first saw it a couple of years ago, and I was a little bit underwhelmed based on some of the hype I had seen from some people. But going into this again, kind of knowing how I felt about it originally, this actually improved for me on a second viewing, and I really got a lot more from it. So it's if you like racing dramas, Rush is definitely worth watching in some form. And if you're going to watch it, I would say probably stick with this 4K, because it's a really nice release. It is a 4K master in Dolby Vision. It looks really nice. I do have the old Universal Blu-ray. That's how I watched it previously. And this is a nice kind of uptick from that. You get a little bit more texture on the costumes, like the jumpsuits and everything. And the colors are a little bit more evenly balanced and deep and everything. And you also get the upgrade of the audio, which is a new Dolby Atmos track, along with the DTS 5.1 track. The Atmos track sounds fantastic. It's mixed slightly low, but if you pump it up just a few notches above reference level, it'll really hit hard. It's a clean, even track, even if it might be mixed just a little bit quieter than some tracks. It hits, and it's more than competent whenever you get it to your preferred listening levels. So this, in addition to that, you get a very brief, like a minute long new intro from Ron Howard talking about the movie. So nothing too crazy. And then you have like the archival special features from the Universal Blu-ray. So it carries over pretty much everything from that release, and you get improved video, improved audio, and a very brief little snippet from Ron Howard. So I'd say it's worth the upgrade to 4K, and if you like the movie, I think it's definitely worth it. Make sure you at least check it out somehow if you like racing dramas, because it's very much worth it. But if you want to own it, 4K is the way to go. Going over into some more genre territory, going over to the Scream Factory label, we have Wes Craven's Shocker, which is not a Wes Craven title I usually hear people talk about very often. This was my first time seeing this one, and I quite enjoyed it. You have a young Peter Berg who he's an actor, but he's also turned into a director in his own right, as a kid who kind of gets mixed up in this kind of serial killer's path, because he kind of has a vision, like a dream of him that kind of leads to his arrest, and how that kind of unfolds, and how you see kind of how they're connected. You have kind of a supernatural flair to this serial killer who is executed but doesn't quite die, and starts jumping into people's bodies through electricity, and kind of it's like a little bit of a possession tale, and like a little bit of like one of my like favorite movies as a kid was this oddball movie called Stay Tuned. It kind of has like an air of that at points near the end, and kind of like jumping from like television show to television show. It's a really wild movie, and I found it quite interesting. It's not like the Wes Craven's best, but Wes Craven was one of the greats. So even kind of a lower tier Wes Craven, I still think it is definitely worth a watch. And it looks really nice on 4K. Like I said, I've never seen this before, never owned it before, but this 4K has been restored from the original camera negative. I know Scream Factory previously released this on Blu-ray. I believe that was an older master. So if you have this, from what I can tell from like screen caps and everything online, this is a really nice upgrade. So the 4K restoration of the original camera negative in Dolby Vision looks very nice. The one thing I do want to note is the way the special effects are rendered of whenever our villain is kind of like electrified and stuff, it kind of looks a little intentionally fuzzy just because of the dated special effects. But all of the main footage, which is most of the movie, it looks fantastic. You do get 2 commentary tracks for this one, 3 new interviews, 4 interviews that were carried over from the previous release, and the like Rush, you get a new Atmos track, you get a 5.1 track and a 2.0 track. So no matter what side of the sound spectrum you want to be on, you are covered. So if you want something expansive and immersive, the Atmos track will do you right. If you want the 2.0 track, it also sounds really great and full and all that kind of stuff. So packed with special features, great audio visual. Shocker, if you're a Wes Craven fan, make sure to check it out. One that will probably be not for many people, but I was interested in, so I picked it up, is the Gary Marshall drama Georgia Rule. I've seen this film a couple times. Most recently was a couple of years ago. And I remember on that viewing, I kind of rated it quite low because it's a very strange movie. It is marketed as kind of like a lighthearted, like comedy about like a girl and her grandmother, and they're kind of butting heads and everything. And it's not quite that. It is more a drama, like a straight drama with really intense subject matter, with some lighthearted elements at times. So Lindsay Lohan plays a kind of a troubled teen who is being driven to her grandmother's as kind of a last-ditch effort to kind of set her straight, while her mom, played by Felicity Huffman, kind of goes off and does her own thing. And there's a lot of this is kind of a trigger warning, content warning for discussions of sexual assault and molestation. So this gets really intense at times in terms of like revelations of like why characters are acting certain erratic ways, and how like this young girl's journey from being kind of like a careless teen who's just like no one can tame her, to kind of like getting her life back on track and just really working through all of her issues. And I'm a fan of Lindsay Lohan. She's went through her own kind of public trials and tribulations over the years. She seems to finally be getting more on a good track, and she's has some interesting projects in the works. But I've always really liked her, and I think she did a really nice job here. And I think everyone does a really good job here. I'm a fan of all of these people, like in terms of like Jane Fonda, Dermot Mulroney, Lindsay Lohan, Garrett Hedlund, in a very goofy role. But you really have to be prepared for a little bit of tonal whiplash at times. Gary Marshall, he's a great director, but he sometimes undercuts some very dramatic revelations with some stings of humor that, while appreciated to lighten the mood, don't always quite work, like in like blending the dramatic with the comedic. But overall, this was, watching it this time, remembering how I felt a couple years ago, it definitely worked better for me. There are some things near the end that I do not quite vibe with in terms of the plot development. It's a little bit, I think it elongates the movie a little bit longer than it needs to be. But overall, I think it's a solid drama. Definitely not for everyone. I know a lot of people do not like this movie. But I think it's a pretty decent one, especially if you like these performers. If you don't like these performers, if you have like a weird grudge with Jane Fonda for stuff with the war and everything, don't watch this. But I love Jane Fonda, and I enjoyed seeing all this and everything. So if you're a fan, definitely worth checking out. On Blu-ray, finally. This actually came out a couple of years ago on Blu-ray, but I'm finally getting to it. And it's a really good transfer. It's an older master, but it's very solid. It's bright, colorful. This is a newer movie, as in the 2000s. So this master holds up very well. You get some good texture on the backgrounds and everything. DTS 5.1 audio. 5.1 audio sounds great. And in terms of special features, you get a commentary track from Gary Marshall. You get some featurettes, a couple deleted scenes, a gag reel. So overall, if you're a fan of the film, it's a good Blu-ray release, but definitely not for everyone, as I mentioned. My final Shout Factory title, it was one that was released around the time as Georgia Rule, so it's another one I'm catching up on. And this one might be more aspirational for some people who are maybe being snowed in recently. You might be thinking about the summer, and what better than Summer School with old Mark Harmon, an 80s comedy classic. And you got old Carl Reiner. Carl Reiner and Gary Marshall in one episode. What could be better? So you have... It's a classic setup of just kind of almost if you have like a Stand and Deliver or Dangerous Minds, where you have a group of kind of misfits who have to take summer school, and the teacher who kind of turns their life around and kind of connects with them. But in this case, it's Mark Harmon, who does not want to be there. He's kind of forced into it. But once he's there, his own kind of slacker energy kind of meshes with theirs, and he finds ways to inspire them. And there's a lot of funny stuff. Some really interesting gore effects, because two of like the main people, one of which his name is Chainsaw in the movie. Big fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like special effects makeup and stuff. So that actually gets implemented into the plot. You can see a little bit of special effects makeup here with Shawnee Smith from the Saw franchise. There's a lot of great names in here. You got Courtney Thorne-Smith, you got Kirstie Alley, rest in peace. Mark Harmon does a good job outside of the NCIS franchise. This is just a really solidly entertaining 80s comedy. It's one of the better ones. In terms of dated stuff, it doesn't suffer as much as a lot of these types of movies. It's just really entertaining. I really enjoyed revisiting this one. I hadn't seen it in probably like 8 years or so, but it's good to revisit it. And this Blu-ray, it does come from what seems to be an older master. It's not quite as in good of shape as like Georgia Rule, because it's an older movie from the 80s. But even this older HD master is solid. It's like a little mushy a little bit in terms of the grain and spots, but there's no outright blemishes. It hasn't been totally DNR'd or anything like that. And you get some good details and it's very colorful. You get bold colors, and you get a DTS 5.1 and 2.0 track, both of which sound really good. So while a new upgrade and stuff, maybe even like Pipe Dream 4K release would be very welcome, but as it turns out, this release is quite good. You do get a commentary track. It's an archival commentary track with Carl Reiner and Mark Harmon. You do get a new interview with one of the performers and some vintage featurettes. So overall, if you're a fan of this one, I think at the time this was released a couple of years ago, people have been waiting for this one for a long time. So those people probably already have it, but if you missed this when it came out, definitely make sure to pick it up. It's a fun 80s comedy. But now is the time of the episode where we start getting into our Kino Lorber content. And there's a ton of it and a lot of good stuff. The first of which is we have 2 films from Steve Desjardins. The first one is Cherry 2000 with Melanie Griffith. So this is a tale of a man and his sex robot. This is set in the future. A man who's kind of ruins his robot that he's in love with, and he wants to go find a replica body. So you can see the reversible cover art. A replica body that's like kind of in the wasteland areas, and he has to hire the bounty hunter Melanie Griffith to help him track down this robot to install his love of his life's memory into that robot, the Cherry 2000. And along the way, he starts to form a bond with Melanie Griffith's character, who is a human. And it's kind of has like a little bit of a Mad Max flair. You go into this like wasteland society with its own rules, and you get kind of interesting things like cars being pulled up by cranes and just explosions and all kinds of stuff. If you like kind of post-apocalyptic content, like futuristic stuff, this one really hits the spot in terms of that kind of like 80s cheese. I believe this was his directorial debut, and he did a really nice job. I'm about to talk about his follow-up here in a second, but this is just like, if you like 80s action films, like futuristic action films, Cherry 2000 is a lot of fun. So this is a new release from Kino. It was first released several years back. I believe it was like 2015 or 2016 with an older master. This comes from a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. Still on Blu-ray, no 4K, but I do not have that older release. But from everything I can tell, it's a really nice upgrade. You do get lots of special features. You get one news commentary track and one archival commentary track. You do get some short films. You get a 2.5 hour making of documentary, which is insane. It's fantastic. That's why there's a whole disc dedicated to just special features here. You also get another 50-minute interview, several different featurettes. You just get a ton of stuff. So the name of that short film is Tarzana. It's a 1978 35mm short film. So I know that's one of the many additions to this package. So upgraded video, tons of new special features. If you don't have this film, or if you only have the old Blu-ray, I think either way it is worth an upgrade to this. And the director's next film was another upgrade of Miracle Mile. So this one, you have Anthony Edwards as a man who meets a young Mare Winningham, sets up to go out on a date with her, oversleeps, tries to attempt to like meet up with her, and along the way to her, he intercepts a phone call at a payphone where he hears that a nuclear strike is about to happen, and it kind of like sets him off on a odyssey that's very After Hours-esque, where it's like late night. He's getting into some very outlandish situations, and him trying to reach this girl that he really likes, and to save her and get out of the city, and all the people he meets along the way, and just how things just kind of spiral out of control. It's a really, really entertaining, lots of fun, dark comedy, but like I said, very After Hours coded, of just like dark comedy, but just like also kind of social commentary mixed in along the way. It works very well. Anthony Edwards does a really nice job. Really great, like small performances from a lot of different people that you would come to know later, like Michael T. Williams. You get Kurt Fuller, Denise Crosby, John Agar. Lots of good people in here. So I really enjoyed this one. I another title I did not own previously, but this is upgrading an older Blu-ray from Kino. This is also from a 4K scan of the 35mm camera negative. From everything I can tell from screenshots online, this is a really nice improvement on that one. One thing I do want to note is this appears to be a DTS 2.0 mono track where it should be a stereo track. So that seems to be an issue with this one that did not affect the previous release from what I have heard. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Hopefully Kino, if it is, or will become aware of this issue and maybe do a replacement for that. But just be aware, if you do get this, the audio isn't mono. You do get some new special features, some of which overlap with Cherry 2000, including the Tarzana short film. But you do get 3 commentary tracks, one of which is new, 2 of which are older. Has some of the, like I said, the short films. You get new and archival interviews. So overall, packed to the gills with special features. Not quite as much as Cherry 2000, but still packed. But there is that audio issue, but the video looks really good. So be aware of just all these factors, and if you like this movie enough, it's probably worth an upgrade, but just hopefully they will fix those audio issues. Going over, I'm starting down a run of kind of more lighthearted comedies, the first of which is from 1965, and that is That Funny Feeling with Sandra Dee and Bobby Darin. You also have Donald O'Connor in here. So this is Sandra Dee playing a maid who goes into kind of like wealthy apartments to clean for her job, and she never meets with the client. She just kind of goes in for a service and kind of leaves and everything. And she ends up bumping into Bobby Darin, whose house she cleans, but she does not know it is his house. And whenever they end up going out on a date, and whenever she is too embarrassed to take him back to her kind of rundown apartment, since she has the keys to this apartment that she knows is supposed to be vacant, she takes him back to what is his own apartment, but he is confused about why she is taking him back, like why she has keys to his apartment. He eventually figures it out, and kind of like it's like a misunderstanding, kind of like duplicitous situation. So it's kind of like almost kind of a screwball situation where it's like if people just like had a conversation and just like were honest with each other, it wouldn't kind of blossom out of control where this eventually goes. But it's just kind of a lighthearted rom-com premise, and it works pretty well. This was previously released by Universal back in 2021 on like a manufactured on demand pressed Blu-ray disc. I've never had that one, but this seems to be from the same master, because it does not list a new master or anything. It looks pretty solid. I did not notice anything majorly wrong with it. You get some bold, bright colors, some pretty good detail, and you get a commentary track and a theatrical trailer. So if you're a fan of 60s rom-coms, this really hits the spot. It's very simple, but it's very pleasant. So I enjoy Sandra Dee. If you do too, check out That Funny Feeling. One that is new to Blu-ray, also from, or this time from Paramount, we have Kino's release of Teacher's Pet with Clark Gable and Doris Day. So in this one, Clark Gable plays a newspaper man who kind of is getting irritated with this journalism professor who he doesn't really know, but he's like kind of come into her orbit, and he's kind of been antagonistic with her. One day he goes down to her class to kind of confront her, ends up kind of being transfixed by her because it's Doris Day and she is lovely. And he ends up pretending to be like enrolled in her class, like a student in her class, and who is just it's a bunch of like older students who like people who are like already have careers who are wanting to learn more about journalism and stuff. And of course he has a knack for journalism because he's been in it for decades, but he kind of like plays dumb and just ends up forming connection with Doris Day. And sure, it's another issue where it's like people are hiding their true identities to get closer to other people, and just how that kind of never really works, but it does work in these types of movies. Another this was in 58. I do quite like this movie, not as much as That Funny Feeling, mostly because I think this is really a nice movie whenever you are just dealing with Clark Gable and Doris Day forming a connection that may not be necessarily romantic. If they were just kind of like gaining admiration for one another, and how that kind of, I think developing an interesting friendship would be good for this one. But them eventually trying to be romantic interests, I do not buy this, simply because at this point Clark Gable was quite like, oh, he was always older than Doris Day, but he was an older gentleman in this era in 58. And it's a stark difference between him and Doris Day. There's like a 20-year difference. Not to engage in age gap discourse, it's just I did not quite buy their particular like romantic pairing. I think it could be a nice kind of like respect for one another, but that's not how it goes. Of course, it has to be a romantic interest. But other than that, it's a pretty interesting, like fun comedy. And it's just a little bit overly long at 2 hours long, but I still like it. This does come from a new master, a 6K scan of the 35mm VistaVision camera negative, remastered by Paramount. Really good looking transfer in black and white. Everything looks crisp, clear, no damage, dirt, or anything. Just a nice VistaVision frame that looks really good. Contrast levels are solid. Everything is great. You do get a commentary track and a theatrical trailer. And yeah, everything solid about this release. So Teacher's Pet, if you're a fan of either of these performers, definitely check it out. Another in that kind of vein, this one also from 1958, we have another iconic star with Cary Grant in Houseboat here with old Sophia Loren. This is a tale, kind of Mary Poppins-esque, but it's just kind of, if Mary Poppins was kind of like a rich socialite who kind of gets mixed up, like mixed up with this family where she becomes a nanny and trying to, Cary Grant plays a widower, and he has this like he has these kids, and he has to start living on a houseboat that they are fixing up, and so of course Sophia Loren comes to hold all of this together, and they kind of like she crosses paths. It's convoluted how she ends up being kind of like the governess of this family, but she does, and of course they start having their own like kind of romantic interest in one another. This one worked a little bit better for me than Teacher's Pet because they're a little bit closer in age. And also they just had more of like a natural chemistry that I think worked a lot better than Doris Day and Clark Gable. So pretty decent. Not the best title of this video, but overall still entertaining. If you're a Cary Grant fan, it is worth checking out. This is also from a 6K scan and from a 35mm VistaVision original camera negative, and it looks really good. This one is a color film. Nice, bold colors, deep, nice texture, no damage. Everything looks pretty nice, pretty solid encode. You get a commentary track and a theatrical trailer. So yeah, this one holds up about as well as you would want it to. Another one debuting on Blu-ray is The Spiral Road with Rock Hudson, Burl Ives, and Gina Rowlands. So you have Rock Hudson as kind of like a hotshot doctor who does not believe in God, going in deep into the Dutch West Indies, jungle, and to study with Burl Ives' character, who is like trying to treat lepers and stuff. And he's a man of faith, and there's just kind of like this push and pull between man of science, man of faith, even though Burl Ives is also a man of science, but just how faith kind of ties into it all. And kind of all this jungle medicine and everything going on. It's a big movie. It's almost 2.5 hours long. It's 2 hours and 19 minutes long. But what really, like, as much as I like Rock Hudson normally, and he's good in this one, Burl Ives is the reason to watch this. He's very entertaining in his role. Gina Rowlands is also good in her smaller role, but it's not kind of developed enough for me to completely like call her like the star of the movie or anything like that. But the way this develops, it kind of loses me a little bit near the end, but kind of whenever they're just doing kind of exploring the jungles, meeting new tribes, trying to help people out, and their conversations about what their responsibilities are as medical professionals and how that all kind of ties into everything, it works for me mostly. So overall, I do recommend it. It's just not, it kind of gets a little bit out of control near the end. This is not listed from being a new master. I'm not sure what it comes from, but overall, I think it's pretty solid. I didn't notice any glaring damage or anything like that. There's some things here, like specks here and there, and the colors are pretty consistent. So overall, I'd say it's a good transfer. Maybe not as good as some of the others, but overall, I think it's solid. You do get a commentary track and a theatrical trailer. So, Spiral Road, worth checking out if you're a fan of these performers, or if you just want to, if you're interested in a jungle medical drama, check it out. My next one, going back to more of like the World War I era, we have A Shout at the Devil with Lee Marvin and Roger Moore. So Roger Moore, one of the earlier James Bonds, and Lee Marvin, just one of my favorite performers. This is a reversible cover art. I like this quite a bit. So this is kind of like about some kind of explorers, poachers, frontiersmen over in Europe, right on the precipice of World War I, like coming across, kind of developing a rivalry with a German unit, and kind of, it doesn't start out as like completely pugnacious at first. It kind of develops as like kind of the war starts to ramp up and how these two clash. Roger Moore actually falls in love with Lee Marvin's daughter who lives kind of over where they're staying, and how their family develops, and how it all kind of leads to kind of this aerial, or like this invasion, and how things kind of really spiral out of control and all that kind of stuff. So overall, I think it's a good kind of like early outburst of the war, and just how that's kind of shaped the country and people and like humanity, and how we weren't really at this time prepared for that level of like what modern warfare would look like, and how that kind of developed. It's some interesting ideas and concepts in here. This one is also quite long, at 2.5 hours long. But like a lot of these longer movies, they find ways to really like hook me and keep my attention. And I think this one was pretty consistent throughout. Some very dramatic things happen that are heartbreaking, but it's very good. This is not listed as a new master. This was released back in 2013 from Timeless Media Group. I've never heard of them before. I've never owned any of their releases, so I've never seen this before, but it's maybe the same master from there. It's a pretty solid one. I didn't have any major complaints with it. I think it looks really nice, maybe a little bit soft at points, some specks here and there, but I think it had some good texture, some good color saturation. No major black crush. I think it was pretty solid. You get a commentary track and a trailer. So overall, good release. Glad to have this back in print, because I probably would have never heard of that other label's Blu-ray, and I think this was very much worth watching. So we have a Burt Reynolds effort from 1968 technically, but I think it was also released in the early 1970s. It's called Fade In. So this is kind of complicated, because this actually depicts the production of another movie. Like within the movie, it's about a Hollywood production of a film that is an actual film starring Terrence Stamp, but Terrence Stamp is also in this movie. So I think the production of that original movie was in 1968, and I think this was originally released in like the early 1970s, because you get a couple different release dates whenever you look this up. So yeah, it says officially premiering a CBS late night movie in 1973. So this is Burt Reynolds in a vein that's not, it's kind of familiar to what we know him from like kind of this era, but this feels really more like he was kind of going more in towards like a indie sensibility, in terms of like 70s, or this was in 68 like I said, but in terms of that kind of like cutting edge, kind of like not necessarily mainstream, almost kind of like an Easy Rider vibe, not quite to that level, but that's kind of the feeling that evokes for me, of just like this woman who's like editing a movie, coming in like to working in this remote area, this transport man played by Burt Reynolds, they're kind of unlikely romance, and just how the parallels between what is happening in this kind of on-set location and what is the real world once she returns home. Will she want to be with him? All that kind of like questioning of like this dramatic romance. This is a solid movie. I enjoyed it. It's not quite as like mainstream friendly as a lot of Burt Reynolds movies. I just want to warn people who are a fan of Burt. It's still very accessible. It's just kind of him being a little bit more artistically minded, I would say. This comes from a 2021 HD master from Paramount, a 4K scan. It looks very nice. Nice, robust textures, colors, all that good stuff. Everything looks quite good. You do get a commentary track, two commentary tracks actually, that kind of delve into and gives you a little bit more background to this. So overall, no reservations on this one. I think if you're a Burt Reynolds fan, it's worth seeing this side of him with Fade In. Kicking over to the Kino cult line for a title, we have Invasion of the Bee Girls. This is kind of straightforward in terms of title, but this is about a community that starts getting a high body count whenever men who are participating in sexual encounters start winding up dead, and it's related to the Bee Girls. So it's a little bit of a kind of a campy horror, like monster horror outing of just like these like sci-fi outing of these women who are killing off men and like luring them and killing them off. And it's silly, but it's fun. It's pretty entertaining movie. I think if you like kind of ridiculous, kind of cheesy, campy movies, Invasion of the Bee Girls, it's not overly exploitative. There's quite a bit of nudity, but like it is not like you're watching like a X-rated movie that's like with a little bit of like acting thrown in. This is like a genuine movie with good at performances, with just like occasional nudity and like stuff to appease genre fans thrown in. Overall, pretty solid. This was released previously by Scream Factory back in 2017. I did not have that release. I've never seen it. But this, with no new master noted, it's probably the same scan. It's just now back in print. You do get a new commentary track if you do not have it yet. This is probably the way to get it. You also get a slipcover in the initial pressing. So, glad to have this back in print. I probably wouldn't have watched it otherwise, but it was a pretty fun one for me. I'm not always like vibing with these types of movies, but this one worked for me. Now to head down a hallway of 4Ks, several 4K releases coming up. And the first one is another previous Scream Factory title. We have Orca, the Killer Whale with Richard Harris, Charlotte Rampling, Bo Derek. So I love this cover art. This is great. I believe Scream Factory released this in like 2020 on Blu-ray. I never got that one, but just based on the cover art of that one, this is much superior cover art, and that was from an older scan. This is from a new 4K scan of the 35mm camera negative in Dolby Vision. So for those who don't know, Orca, the Killer Whale, this is like, the best way I could describe it is probably what audiences thought they were going to get whenever they first went to see Jaws, but they got something a little bit more classy and like intellectual. This is like about Richard Harris, who, for those who don't know, was the original Dumbledore in the Harry Potter films. Um, uh, and Charlotte Rampling, great actress, still working, love her. Um, Richard Harris plays a man who accidentally kills a killer whale who is pregnant. And what we learn from this movie is that killer whales are one of the only mammals that will kill for revenge. So the whale's partner just starts, the whole movie just starts like, sets his eyes on Richard Harris and just starts coming around to just fuck him up. So if you want a revenge movie where the whale is the one seeking revenge, this is for you. It's ridiculous, but it's fun, and it's kooky. I love it. This is, like I said, from the new 4K scan. This looks very nice in 4K. I've never seen the film before, but this looks really, really good. All of the kind of like optical effects and stuff, they're handled pretty well, but that's any small downgrades are usually during those scenes. And encoding wise, it's pretty solid. Kino are not always the best with encoding. This is most evident in kind of like how the skies look, but it's not the worst effort by any stretch of the imagination. And this is just pretty solid, good picture, nice textures, bold colors in Dolby Vision, look really great. You do get a 5.1 and 2.0, the original track of that one, and you do get 2 commentary tracks, 1 new, 1 archival, and a trailer. So I think fans of this film will be quite pleased with this one. Kino did a really nice job with it, and overall, recommended. My next one is a notorious horror film. That's I will not ruin the ending of, despite a lot of people knowing this one. This is April Fool's Day. Watching it a little bit early for my taste, but oh well, you don't always have to have a proper theme. Love this original cover art. So this is a horror mystery comedy film about a group of privileged kids who go out to a house and play pranks on one another for April Fool's Day until things start getting a little bit too real, bodies start popping up, and how that all kind of unfolds will be frustrating to some, very amusing to others. I find I fall more on the positive side of the spectrum. I think this is a pretty fun movie overall. It's not overly gruesome. You don't get nudity or anything like that. But in terms of like what it's going for, I was pretty entertained. Some of these characters you want to see get murdered and like killed off. But overall, I was pretty engaged. And yeah, it's a very polarizing movie, but I think if you're a horror fan, if you like it, and if you like it, I think you'll enjoy this 4K release. This does come from a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. This was only first released on Blu-ray not that long ago, from Screen Factory, and that was in 2020. That was first released. I never had that release, so took a long time for it to get to Blu-ray, and only about 5 more years to get it on 4K. In terms of Kino's output, I think this is pretty solid overall. Some minor encoding stuff like that could be enhanced. I wish Kino would get back to flawless encoding like they kind of used to do in the past, at least much better than they were now. And then you also get, I believe, a DTS 5.1 and 2.0 track. You do get a new commentary track, and 6 interviews from the previous release were carried over. I think pretty much everything from the Screen Factory release was carried over, except maybe like a photo gallery or something like that. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid release for April Fool's Day. There is still time for you to get it for the titular holiday. You have a couple months, so get on it. Worth checking out. Another 4K upgrade from Kino. We have Murder by Decree. This is one I did have the previous Blu-ray of. I had gotten this for a birthday present a couple of years ago. This was first released back in 2020, I believe. Yes. from a disc that was honestly pretty horrific. It was not a great disc from Kino. Luckily, we get a new master for this one. This is a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative in SDR from Studio Canal. Now, longtime fans know that, and look, you do get reversible cover art here if you want it. Longtime fans will know that Kino releases usually fare better recently if they are in SDR, even though HDR is usually what people most want from a 4K release. And encoding wise, SDR is usually your best bet. And they do a really nice job with this one. I think in terms of comparing it to the old Blu-ray, it's much, much better. I think fans will be pretty pleased with that. And encoding wise, this is one of their better efforts in their 4K space this episode. You do get 2 commentary tracks and a trailer. Overall, really good release for this one. Definitely much improved from the 2020 release. So if you had that, get rid of that, upgrade to this. Even the Blu-ray that's included in this is from the new master, so even that's an improvement. So overall, check this one out. This is like a Sherlock Holmes tale with like Sherlock facing off and trying to track down Jack the Ripper. And you got Christopher Plummer and Donald Sutherland, James Mason, and Genevieve Bujold. Overall, if you're like kind of Sherlock Holmes tales, Murder by Decree, I dug it. Going forward to the late 80s, we have Al Pacino in Sea of Love. So Al Pacino, Ellen Barkin, John Goodman. Al Pacino playing a detective who is tracking down a Lonely Hearts killer. Men are showing up dead. And who is behind it? Could it be Ellen Barkin, who he is trying to investigate but ends up falling in love with herself, and his life is kind of falling apart prior to meeting her, saying he's super horny and like kind of erratic and falls in love, and it's steamy, and is he falling in love with a killer? All those questions. Those are the questions you have to figure out by watching this movie, which is a really good movie. I liked it. I kind of guessed as to where it was heading, but that did not lessen my enjoyment of it. And some classic Al Pacino lines, saying that he's everyone's daddy. You gotta love that in context, especially, is really amusing. Al Pacino just has a way about him of just like delivering just these amazing lines. Ellen Barkin is beautiful, very like the way she kind of like how magnetic she is on screen is great. You understand why Al Pacino falls in love with her. And then you got a jovial John Goodman in his like role. I love John Goodman. So I enjoy this movie. I had this previously in a 2-pack from Universal with Scent of a Woman, which I also hope gets a 4K at some point. I think everyone who's ever seen that original Sea of Love Blu-ray will agree that it is an abomination, DNR'd, waxy, very, very bad. This is from a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative, much, much improved in Dolby Vision. Bold colors. You actually get some texture to spaces and all that kind of stuff. Everything works out very nicely in terms of that. Just a huge improvement. Is it flawless? No, because of Kino's encoding, but it's overall pretty solid. And like I said, much, much bigger improvement than the old Blu-ray. So while maybe some aspects could be optimized a little bit more in terms of the encoding, overall, this is a pretty solid effort. So definitely recommend Sea of Love. You do get 2 commentary tracks and some featurettes and deleted scenes and all that stuff. So overall, Sea of Love, this is a release we've been waiting for over that old waxy Universal release. My next release is one I know is a little bit controversial. People rag on this movie for being awful. I don't hate it, but it is one of the lesser efforts from this director. This is John Frankenheimer's Reindeer Games with Ben Affleck and Charlize Theron and old Gary Sinise. and a lot of other solid performers, like Danny Trejo's in here. Love him. So we are fading out of Christmas, but I still got to enjoy the season by watching this. It takes place around the holiday season, and Ben Affleck is a man who is freshly out of jail. His friend just died before he came out of jail, who was a pen pals with a woman who played by Charlize, who once he gets out of jail, he pretends to be his friend and starts to see this woman, and he ends up getting roped in by her brother into trying to rob a casino, and how that all kind of spirals out of control. He tries to get out of it by saying that he is not the man that she thinks he is, and all that good stuff. But it all just kind of unfolds with like potential casino heist and backstabbing and double crossing and all kinds of stuff, and just explosions and all this, everything. Is this a great movie? No. Is it oddly transfixing? Yes. I like all these performers. Not all of them are giving good performances, but I like them and I like seeing them, and it's just like weirdly, just like hypnotically bad, and that's sometimes enough, like what vibe I'm going for. So overall, is this movie worthy of a 4K? Maybe not, but I'm glad it did get it. The 4K is for the theatrical cut, which is a compromise cut from John Frankenheimer, but it does look very good. With some encoding issues aside, overall, it's a very solid 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. You do get a director's cut of this film, which is superior, on Blu-ray only. That is just an HD master. That's how it is listed. I do not have the previous Blu-ray. My guess is that it's probably the same master that was used for the original Blu-ray as this Blu-ray. If you're only wanting it for the director's cut, I'm not sure if this will be an improvement for you. But if you are interested in the theatrical cut being in 4K, and then also having director's cut as an option on Blu-ray, because of how it's conformed and like made for home video, I don't think they conformed it to like a format that would be easily upscalable to 4K. So we'll probably never get it in 4K. But you have the option in different formats to watch both cuts. So I'm not writing for this movie. I'm not saying that you should need to own it in 4K, but it is a pretty decent 4K release. DTS 5.1 sound, audio commentary tracks for both cuts from director John Frankenheimer, behind the scenes featurette, and a trailer. Overall, if you're a fan of the film, check this out. But not the best effort from anyone involved, but it is weirdly entertaining for me. And my final title from Kino, we have I believe my newest Kino title, at least, maybe my newest overall. This is Mr. Monk's Last Case, a Monk movie. So I've spoken about the series Monk on this show several times, as Kino released all 8 seasons of it on Blu-ray. And now we are finally getting the Peacock original movie that capped everything off years after the show went off the air. The cast returned. You got beloved faces returning, and you got to see Monk confronting some heavier issues while his daughter is set to be married. And this brings everyone together, but also things go awry, and then suddenly a case is underway. And it's just nice to see all these characters again. Is it the strongest Monk outing? No, but overall it is a good one. There are some deficiencies here and there, but there's enough comedic stuff going on and enough character moments that it's just good to see them. And I think this is a fitting reprise for this, like coming back with these characters, spending a little bit of time with them, and just putting things to bed in some certain way, and getting to see some unexpected faces as well. So overall, if you're a Monk fan, worth having this to kind of round out your collection after the 8 seasons. Blu-ray, this is a newer movie. It just came out a couple years ago on Peacock. HD Master looks fantastic. No issues. Only some like TV spots and internet trailers. So not replete with special features or anything. But overall, good release for Monk fans to be able to own this on physical media. That is my show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tons of good releases. Let me know which one you are most interested in checking out. Make sure you share this with anyone you think might be interested in any of these titles. I appreciate all of your support of the show. Make sure you subscribe to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel. Make sure to give this a like and all that kind of stuff. It really helps. Thank you so much for continuing to come back week after week. I will be back again next week, but until then, enjoy these movies.
Come on! Give it to me! You got it, baby.